Oh my goodness, I am super, super, super excited today as I have one of my dearest friends, mentors, and one of the most phenomenal women I know to talk with me on today's series, Self-Love is a Practice. Today we're looking at self-love, the holidays, and the weight we carry. As December is here, I think it's an important time for us to be having this conversation. Certainly for me, the holidays have always brought up a mixed bag of emotions. I'm an only child from a divorced family. I spent most of my life trying to please all people at all times during Christmas. And at the end of it, I found myself completely depleted, exhausted, and resentful. So if I come back to what I say self-love is about, self-love is a practice. It is the most radical form of activism, and it must begin with self. What I would like for us to address today is how are we navigating the holidays and how are we treating ourselves during this time? And there are many nuances and layers to that. Now, I particularly invited Professor Carpenter today to speak about that aspect on the holidays and a unique situation where we find ourselves in Jamaica, our birthland, at the aftermath of a disaster where we're looking at both grief and trauma right on the heels of a holiday. So there's a lot that is floating around in the stratosphere, so to speak. Before I dive into the questions, I'm going to attempt to introduce Professor Carpenter, and I know I will make several mistakes. But one of the things that I love about us, there's so much I love about us, but as we were preparing for this, I said, how does your work show up? And may I call you Karen? Because I am going to call you.
Please do.
Karen said to me, well, I don't know if I'm healing largesse, but I'm certainly healing one human at a time. And that's such a seamless alignment for me because as a yoga teacher, a human holistic developer, one of the things I talk about is transforming lives one breath at a time. So already before we've even begun, you're going to enjoy this. If you're driving, pay attention. If you're not driving, get the coffee or the tea ready. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Professor Carpenter so that we can deep dive into our very rich questions. To begin, Professor Carpenter stands as one of the Caribbean's most unflinching and visionary voices in the realm of sex, gender, and human behavior. She is also, I'm going to press pause here and come back because I see I'm about to. So one of the things that Professor Carpenter is most proud of in terms of legacy is the Caribbean Sexuality Free Clinic that operates out of the University of the West Indies Hospital, and this was formed under the Mindsight Group. This is a tremendous step for this island, Jamaica. And so, Karen, I want to acknowledge you and thank you for that body of work. Further, she has a sharp intellect, fearless commitment to truth-telling, and she confronts complexities of sex, identity, and intimacy with profound clarity. I dare to add that we have had many animated discussions around these various topics, also talking about shame, silence, and secrets, which is something that we will also address in this podcast. Her scholarship fused with a deep commitment to social justice, her position as a trusted guide for policymakers, educators, and communities seeking to understand one person at a time within the fractures of our society cannot be underestimated. Karen, I personally thank you for all that you do, and I would love for you to add anything that I may have missed, which I know I did in that introduction.
Well, I think whatever has been missed might come out in our conversation, but certainly it's been a pleasure to work with the Jamaican population in the free clinic in particular at the University Hospital, because So many of us have questions about those three areas that you spoke about, Nadine: intimacy, sexuality, how we show up in our identities as sexual persons. And we feel a lot of shame around that. And we've been made to feel a lot of shame around that. So I'm particularly pleased that over the years, with the assistance of the administration at the hospital, we've been able to serve the public and answer some of those questions for people who couldn't otherwise afford therapy. So that for me is definitely a point of pride.
Absolutely. And that work will become even more significant and timely in the months and years ahead. Okay, I'm going to go from the macro to the micro because there's a lot here. And my first question, Karen, during the holidays, many of us unconsciously relived old emotional patterns, family conflict, loneliness, the pressures to perform. Why do you feel that the holidays are such powerful triggers, and how can we begin rewriting the internal script around that?
Yeah. So any momentous occasion, any occasion that changes the pattern of our lives is going to be a catalyst. And by catalyst, I mean something that creates change in other things. Yes? So when we think about things like Christmas, Thanksgiving for the Americans who've just celebrated it, Kwanzaa, and any other major celebration, it brings together people who would not otherwise be together. We see these people once a year, twice a year, but everything from our past is brought into the room when they enter the room. The conflicts that have been in the family all along. And just yesterday, I found myself saying to someone, family is a place where you practice your emotions. So don't be afraid of the fact that, they bring up emotions for you that are threatening, that are frightening, that are unpleasant. This is where we get to practice before we go out into the real world. So that's what makes the holidays such a big, almost bomb that could go off at any moment. We don't know when someone's going to say something unfortunate, do something unpleasant, or remind us of something we've been trying to forget for a long time. It also brings joys, of course, but here we're talking about why it weighs on us so much.
I love that statement you just made, and I want to drive that home to our listeners. Families is where we practice emotions. We've all heard that saying, you think you're enlightened, go home for the holidays. One of the things I found, Karen, is as a child growing up, and I know you know my story well, is this immense pressure to be all things to all people. And I would be a well-grown adult before I realized that wasn't actually necessary. And here's the thing. Our families are almost a microcosm of the world. And so you and I have spoken about when we go into the world and people are going, well, why is this happening in this part of the world? And why isn't this person speaking to that person? And I go, guys, stop with your self-righteous stuff. Look at your dining table. Mm-hmm. Your family are you sitting across that you are not speaking to? Let's begin saving and healing the world there. So thank you very much for that. Thank you. My next question, and it ties into the holidays as well. When we talk about the emotions that arise, the shame, and how it keeps us silent during the festive seasons, how does holiday shame show up? Everything from gift giving to who didn't show up, to who didn't call, to who sent a card, to who bought which gift list. And in my humble opinion, what we're actually doing when we get into that is that we're trying to work through our stuff by externalizing it. And then business when we're all told that we should feel okay. We should feel okay. And part of the self-love is being able to say to myself, to my mentor, to my best friend, to my partner, me don't really feel so good. So I know I've said a lot there. I guess the question I'm asking is, how can we recognize shame within ourselves when it comes up? For me, I find it's something that lingers. It usually takes me days to realize, oh, this is what is here. And how can I compassionately, having had the awareness, some of us don't have that awareness, to address that? I said a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes. And so shame, when we think of shame, think social, two S's. Shame is social. Guilt is personal. If I feel guilt about my emotions,
Hold on a minute, Professor. Shame is social. Guilt is
guilt is personal.
Thank you, ma'am.
So if I feel guilty about not wanting to call this a festive season, and again, just a labeling of the season as festive puts pressure on people. I've got to be happy. I've got to be giddy. I've got to be glad. I've got to show these emotions that sometimes are false gaiety. Perhaps I don't feel that way. So I begin to feel internally guilty about my emotions. But shame is about social comparison. When I compare how I feel or what I can give or how I can show up with how others are behaving, showing up, giving, I feel embarrassed because you have to have an audience to feel shame. Shame is about imagining the social comparison. And nobody's out there judging you necessarily. But if we internalize that others are judging us for how we show up, how we give, whether or not we're jolly, whether or not we're happy, that's where the shame comes in. Because you notice that when you think about the word shame, you almost lower your eyes, right? And that's because you don't want to be looked at. You don't want to look others in the eye and you don't want to be looked at. Guilt makes you withdraw because you pull into yourself with guilt. So shame and guilt tend to go together, tend to accompany each other. And I think the first thing is that we have to relabel the season for ourselves. So for instance, one of the things that I thoroughly supported when it started to happen in Jamaica and still support is a celebration of Kwanzaa. Why? It takes us away from Christmas, the Christ Mass. And we have to recognize that people celebrate in different ways culturally, and they're entitled to see the season in different ways culturally. For others, it is a different, it's Eid. We're about to hit Eid. We're about to hit all sorts of other seasons in this temporality right now between December and January around the world. So first of all, figure out how you want to celebrate it. What's your celebration? And if your celebration is a cupcake and a candle, cool. Call it cupcake season if you want. But we have to have the resilience to own our feelings and say, I don't feel happy. I don't feel joyous. I don't feel giddy and light. I don't have the money for a gift. I don't even know who I would be giving a gift to in this my season of grief. Accept that you are not feeling the way others want you to feel. And that's where we begin.
Perfection. And that was precisely what I was about to say, because it is only through awareness that we can actually do something about it. Now, as you are getting, Karen, my archetype or my orphan archetype has a way of coming to visit me around these times. I'm developing a better relationship with her. Last year, I took her to Hawaii. This year, I might take her to Mexico. But I'm aware of the fact that she's going to come up. And I'm aware of the fact that I have a trusted friend in you that I can call and go, nobody loves me. I don't have any family. And then you will come back and you'll go, Nadine, get a hold of yourself. You listen.
Love you, and they've shown it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you want to be mindful also of the stories that you're telling yourself at this particular time. And I love the fact that you made reference to the other organized religious forms, because
Yeah.
what it says, let us seek to understand rather than to be understood. Because ultimately, at this time of year, it doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe, love is what we are seeking.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the other thing that strikes me as I was thinking about us having this conversation is that in parts of this country, parts of the world, certainly because we see what has happened around the world with the flooding that's taken place recently and other kinds of disasters, the heavy snow that's going to have people absolutely landlocked in parts of the United States. They didn't get a hurricane, they didn't get a tsunami, but they got massive snow in the pre-snow season. And snow and ice mean other kinds of problems. So as we're thinking about it, I want to encourage people, try to imagine a ritual that would make you feel calm. Because seasons are about rituals. That turkey that's freed or cooked, the one that gets a pardon, the one that goes in the oven, those things are rituals. So maybe last year before the hurricane, your ritual was to get together with your family and everybody, bring food stuff and so on and so forth. And this year you can't do that. Before we hit the season, create your ritual. Create a ritual that you can manage without the guilt and shame.
I am sitting here bouncing in my
I
seat
see you doing your bounds.
because I actually want to conclude our conversation today with a tiny ritual. So the fact that you just organically presented that there is beyond beautiful. And you're absolutely right. It is all about the rituals. Now, I want to see how I want to move through this. I'm going to come to a sobering place in this conversation as we talk about shame and trauma. Prior to Hurricane Melissa landing on Jamaica, I was here, and I believe I said this to you. When Hurricane Gilbert, I think it was 1988 or 89, hit Jamaica, I was not here. I was living in the United States. However, what I do recall ever since then, 37 years ago,
Yes.
whenever a storm was coming, my mother would go into a complete meltdown because she had a roof in Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
As the days leading up to Melissa and I was here in Jamaica, in Montego Bay, there was a frenzy and like an anxious energy in the as it were.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you looked around, everything was beautiful. It was clear blue skies. It was a perfect day. But let me tell you what I understood then. I began to get some insight into the trauma of Gilbert because people were re-traumatized and kind of all of those feelings were coming up and they were moving from that place.
Yes. And don't forget that Gilbert was a major one. I was here for Gilbert. I've been here for a lot of the hurricanes, earthquakes, storms, etc. But we've had also less strong hurricanes since Gilbert. Alan, we've had a number of them, and those were equally frightening. So it's not Gilbert memories, 37 years ago memories that they're banking on. They're actually looking at the trajectory of the things that have happened in between. And they're hearing this one Wasara. So if this is worse than the ones I experienced before, what can I expect? Yeah. And the unexpected is what makes us anxious.
Yes. Yes. So the hurricane comes along, does what she does, goes about her business, and I go into the field, and what I am witnessing, experiencing with people that I'm encountering, and it's fun you talk about shame and the downcast eyes, is nobody is naturally is enthusiastic to share what their experience was. And then it actually started to come out as I started to do some somatic work, a bit of breathing, some orienting into the space, anchoring into the body. What came up was shame. They're ashamed that they have lost their homes, their livelihood, their families, etc. And so one of the things I found myself sharing with people is that there is nothing for you to personally feel ashamed.
Yes.
Because on a level, we're kind of all in the same boat. Also, we're not in a normal living condition.
Yes.
So I want to, I saw you are about.
Yes. The shame piece as it relates to loss and grief.
Yes.
Part of that is about saying to yourself, I should have been better prepared. It's the should haves that make us feel that shame. It's the should haves that keep us from sharing. I should have been better prepared. I should have a better house. I should have withstood this. I should have gone to Kingston where we were having just wind and rain. I should have taken up that offer years ago to fly out. I should have. Yes? So all of the things that we did not do, that we could not have prepared better, we're not accepting that we could not have been better prepared. And with the loss of your house, your car, your animals, one lady, she lost 12 head of cattle, and she's a cattle farmer. She was on the radio. People lost their identities. What was lost is not the things. It is a who I am in this community. When I could have reached out to my neighbor, I could have go down the road and get a Hana banana. I could have offered somebody something. You come to talk to me, and I can't give you a little bush tea. Yes? Because there is nothing to give you. So people have lost their identities.
And you know what's beautiful in what you just said, Karen? It almost brought tears to my eyes, is that on a level we kind of come full circle, because ultimately it's not about the toys and the gifts. It's about heart connection. And what I found was being in the field, that once I really looked into their eyes and held space for them and touched with their permission and let them know they're not alone, they did not feel ashamed to cry, to let the tears come, and to know that they were being held and heard in a way that did not rob them of their dignity that they have already had enough robbed of at this time.
And I want to make a suggestion, Nadine.
Please.
For those who will tune in, for those who will listen, for those who meet you in the field, as you assist them to regain part of that identity, part of that dignity, is I'm going to suggest something that I do with students who are at the university working on their degrees. When I do groups of students doing their higher degrees, I ask them to give each other an IOU of 6 hours. So each person has to give the other person 6 hours. And I think if we could give each other 6 hours of assistance, 10 hours of assistance, a day of assistance, that's a bigger gift at this seasonal time than any other box of anything that's going to be disposed of at some point. I know, for instance, there's a model in Cuba where people are putting up houses and whole communities come together. The Amish do it as well. There are lots of cooperative groups on the ground in other countries, and they build one person's house. And then the next weekend, they build the other person's house until the community is built back. And I think the biggest gift we can give each other right now is our time, our support, and our encouragement. And to think repair rather than disaster. Think renew rather than degrade. Yeah? We have to start moving forward in our thoughts.
Wow. And I think without that, that's beautiful. That kind of wraps everything up together in such a meaningful and beautiful way. So one of the things that Karen spoke about is the practice of rituals, routines, the things that we do. And they can be grandiose and they can be as simple as 3 breaths. Mm-hmm. And so during this holiday time, whether you are shopping, cooking, recovering, just trying to hold it all together, whatever that may be, you can take 3 breaths. And here is what I've been practicing and what I'd like to offer you. I'd like for you to set your alarm on your phone. We all have a phone. If you're listening to this, you have a phone. 2 to 3 random times during the day. Before you go into this activity, check in with yourself and notice, when do I tend to feel stressed? For me, it's about 10:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and maybe 6 p.m. You set the alarm for those times, and wherever you are, you can step aside and you can take 3 deep breaths, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth 3 times. And when you're finished, I guarantee you a couple of things will happen. you will recognize, oh my goodness, was I running that quickly?
Mhm.
You have the awareness there, and then you might want to take 3 more breaths. Or you might just realize, my mind, my body, and my soul, or whatever word you want to choose, have recalibrated in just 3 breaths. And it gives you a little bit more energy to keep on keeping on. So, for those who have listened, Professor, do you have anything further you'd like to add?
It's funny because I was going to say it would be amazing if we could adopt that practice nationwide. It would be amazing if each time we got together to give those 6 hours, those 10 hours, that one day, the gift of ourselves to others, if we would just take breaths together, because then we would recognize where the emergencies exist.
Ashe.
If the rest of us are calm,
Yes.
the real emergencies will stand out and we can rally to assist those people with the real emergencies.
You see why I invited her here, my listeners? You don't get much better than this. Absolutely. And I do, as you know, Karen, I do not start a single meeting, whether I'm speaking to an attorney or a group of students or a group of corporate people, without taking a moment to come into collective stillness. Because
Yes.
from there, people are in a place of receptivity. I didn't mean to get into this, but having mentioned the word receptivity, reciprocity, there are many of us here who are excellent at giving, but we don't know how to receive.
Absolutely.
This holiday season, challenge yourself with the gift of receiving, because those 3 breaths are you receiving. You're giving as you receive. You inhale, you receive. You exhale, you give. And make that a metaphor for life.
Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful centering practice. And I think we'd be a calmer nation if we
Absolutely.
could, a more loving nation.
Yes. And then, as the loving little nation, I don't like the word little, but as a powerful nation that ripples out so much into the world, can you imagine what's possible when we do that?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here, Professor Karen Carpenter. My listeners, thank you for being here and for listening. My name is Nadine McNeil. Oh, I will put in the notes how you may contact and follow my mentor, Professor Karen Carpenter. My name is Nadine McNeil, saving lives one breath at a time. Thank you.